My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. Go ahead and get this. This is the evidence of the mentally ill who are calling themselves a police department, and the entity has been engaged. This is over 45 minutes of stalking. This is how unhinged and how frustrated the entity that's going to prison is with me. I want to be clear, this is the level of evidence that's going to be played in court regarding making sure that Mike LORENZ does not get out of prison, okay? This is establishing the precedent of what domestic terrorists are going to be subject to, and the level of a threat to society that they pose. This is the entity that's engaged in this, and the entity's gang stalking what the people of the state. They're in Stater Brothers, the same African-American male that likes to obstruct my path inside of the grocery store, harassing me on behalf of the Ontario police, that are stalking, flying in circles, not going anywhere while I'm publishing the evidence. This is indeed targeting me. This is indeed mentally ill. You know that this is a mentally ill person that is stalking me and doing so in a helicopter. So mental illness is already on the table, but the entities engaged in this under the fake moon. The environment is directly indicative of mental illness and the fact that they're doing so. Okay, this demon walks outside, crossing path. His license 6YDN858. This is P.O.C. and the entity is maintaining ongoing surveillance in a helicopter in particular because Mike LORENZ wants to make me feel like he's got a gun to my head, like he's going to blow me away, like he's going to come kidnap me in the middle of the night, like they're going to drop bombs on me, like they're going to snipe me, all right? Like they're going to do something violent, which they've already done. They've done these things, right? They've engaged in battery by the people. They've engaged in theft by the people. They've engaged in kidnapping via criminal defamation, malicious assertions with the people, and you're engaged in what is stalking me by helicopter while I'm publishing all the evidence. And I'm also going to include this video of the entity engaging in what is surveillance on the venue of the internet, no warrant or probable cause. That doesn't even exist to engage in criminal surveillance, but there's no warrant or probable cause to keep my device under surveillance, which is what Stater Brothers is engaging in. All right, they're here engaging in the pattern of conduct. Under the fake moon, Stater Brothers is being prosecuted. Stater Brothers is speaking to not only its own prosecution, but the prosecution of the U.S. government, the people of the state. This is a massive RICO. And I want to let you know how it's going to end. Prison. They already lost. This is an epic, historic, groundbreaking federal RICO case. They lost. They're only flying over there because I started capturing this video. These idiots. It's already known what they've been doing. I'm getting this because I'm punctuating my evidence because I'm going to put this on X. But this is what they've been doing the whole time. This is what the people of the state have been doing the whole time. This is what they're doing when I'm in the Fontana Lewis Library, when I'm inside of the Ovid Family Community Library. And what did Sean Thrasher put on paper that I was doing? I'm monitoring, not monitoring, but I'm violating some woman in the bathroom. While they're stalking like this, Sean Thrasher's going to prison. Okay, he's going to sit in prison and think about how you are defaming my character, and you will never engage in what is even uttering my name. You're never going to forget me because he's going to prison behind defaming my character with those vagina monitors who forget that people like Sean Thrasher are going to prison. They forget about that when they're engaging with a stalking like a psychopath for 45 minutes because the evidence is going on the internet regardless. Sean Thrasher, who's lying on my character while you see them stalking, and you barred me from going into the Ovid Family Community Library, and you're still going to prison, sir. You're still going to prison where you can switch like an effeminate male and get all the attention that you want there because you're going to prison. This is not a joke. You're going to prison, and this is the disservice, like I said, while they are stalking. And they didn't go anywhere. They did that already an hour ago. And while the airport is flying over, they flew right back out. They're not going anywhere. And they're going to prison. These are the employees that are systematically monitoring. Pay attention because they're engaged in poisoning. They're engaged in systematic monitoring with the police and furtherance of murder. The police are stalking you to murder you. The people of the state are stalking with the police to murder you. P.O.C. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that's stalking at the Ontario Town Square. And the moment that I'm moving, right, getting ready to get up, that's what monitoring is. The entity does the same thing with light activity. The entity does the same thing with audible activity. These are the elements for monitoring. While you already know that the people of the state are here stalking, whether you're wearing a security uniform, whether you are across the street in a police vehicle, whether, including the one that is operating the plane, they're stalking. Now, the entity is engaging in this at what is 5:12 a.m. at the Ontario Town Square. This is the P.O.C. flying right over the roof, right next to me. Okay? Very much a stalker. Right? They're very much engaged in what is stalking me, and they're totally not trying to hide that the entity is stalking. You are witnessing what is the prosecution, the ongoing counterattack of domestic terrorists, of enemies in this country, while the U.S. government itself has waged an attack against American citizens, literally engaged in what are acts of war in the United States.
while domestic terrorists are attacking American citizens, and it is referred to as gang stalking, but this is entirely un-American. The entity that is stalking is not just engaged in the criminal act of stalking. It has an overall psychological impact, and that is also a part of the warfare tactic that the government has employed against American citizens. All right, and this is what the entity is doing. What you're looking at, what I documented last night at the Ontario Village Shopping Center, by helicopter and by airplanes, in concert with the people who are all sharing in that stalking together. And I get that on an ongoing basis. They did the same thing in the morning, an ongoing stalking campaign, ongoing repetitious pacing, while they are under no circumstances secretly engaging in anything. Everyone is looking at the stalker. Everyone is looking at an enemy of the United States. And they are going by company names. They are doing so in the city, which is an enemy of the state. This is literally as un-American and as in opposition to being united as it gets. And this is the prosecution of the government that has engaged in what is waging war against an American citizen. And it shall be the basis of establishing not only federal legislation, but the ways in which you are prosecuting what is no conspiracy theory at all regarding the government that's engaging in what is engaging in war against American citizens, domestic terrorists attacking American citizens. This is P.O.C. It's currently 5:14 a.m.
Alrighty, that's molestation with light. That's called crossing path. He's monitoring on his device. This is a stalker, and he's doing so while the government is stalking on Hope Boulevard as I walk toward Hope Boulevard. That's the entity that is stalking, flying right next to me, flying over me, stalking in planes with the people of the state, who then get aboard Omnitrans, who is gang stalking. That's bus 1265. That's arriving on time pursuant to gang stalking me, not out of what is a commitment to engaging in a legitimate business, because they also fail to arrive on time in order to gang stalk me. They are under all circumstances crossing path with the state that maintains no terminals where any flights are flying, hovering over Holt and Euclid Avenue and veering across the city of Ontario like they are now. This is also not in conformity to hovering over the Stater Brothers parking lot like they are last night, as though they're taking off. Where on Hope Boulevard, they're doing so over where I'm walking and show you Safeco and the houses off of Bonita, where then they're stalking while I'm in the parking lot on the opposite side of Bonita, inside of the Ontario Village Shopping Center. That's the P.O.C. Omnitrans is being prosecuted for sharing in what is this ongoing psychological war, which is the impact on an American citizen in the aggregate where you are gang stalking. And also Omnitrans itself, which is a gang member, is engaging in psychological war while stalking on the roads and the highways with the population, while all the gang members operate the coaches, and all the gang members that are literally the coaches themselves, as they are used to create light activity, as they are stalking your path, engaging in this very sick iteration of the P.O.C. psychological torture with regard to stalking with light. They're literally using the coaches to do that. These are businesses that are going to cease to exist, okay? And Omnitrans is engaging in that, the aerial surveillance and the surveillance on the highway right now. Now, the mental illness that you're aware of, what you're witnessing, you see the light on the signs, that's all impossible light activity. It's not the product of the traffic. These are demons. That's a demon, all right? That's on the side of the road with the light activity, okay? And that is apes fitness. I've already documented those apes. They are demons, not focused on working out. They're focused on me and my vagina. None of them. This is all demonic. And this is a failed, but nonetheless an act of war. And the federal government has a very clear, decisive response. All right, this is P.O.C. What the entity was doing last night, for example, stalking with light, aiming light like you are, and the Ontario police were going back and forth and back and forth. This is what the demons are doing on the roads and the highways right now. An iteration of stalking with light, and they are crossing path back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. That's what that is. And that's what the mentally ill were doing in a helicopter last night for a prolonged period. Very much triggered, okay? And so are the people of the state. They're quiet, they're silent, they don't know you, and they're engaging in what is acts of war against you, which is also psychologically harmful. This is very much a threat to American citizens, and it will be met with what are the response by the federal government in order to protect American citizens who are subject to war by the domestic terrorists that are enemies, and the entity is doing so by company names, okay? So this is an actual war on domestic terrorism. This is P.O.C.,
It is currently 5:42 a.m. as I'm arriving at Holton Boulevard and Euclid Avenue. The entity is stalking by flying over, and a stalker is already in position. That stalker then aborts what is a means of ongoing stalking, which is omnitrans. These are all businesses. All right, that's the pattern of conduct. P.O.C. Alrighty, it is 5:55 a.m. So the same that we're sharing in what is terrorism, the Ontario Police Department at 12 o'clock in the morning. He works the night shift. Okay, so he is also stalking right now. He literally on surveillance cameras is what you would confirm. 5:55 a.m. pursuant to a demon that's engaging in surveillance with the government. Now getting his shopping cart, his audible activity, and pacing in the engineer light, where the entity had the fake moon over me, and where the Ontario police were right here in this parking lot. Which everybody, you don't even have to go to my website. You can go to X and look at the video of the Ontario police exhibiting mental illness that is shared with the people of the state, including the African American third party that's engaged in what is stalking me in a grocery store. And this is a free advertisement to the public. Anybody that's connected to him is likely a demon, but anyone that does not know that this third party whose license plate is on that video that's published on my YouTube channel, this is the P.O.C. This is the P.O.C. at YouTube, and this is the P.O.C.wordpress.com. This is the demon that drives the Accord, I believe it is. He's a psycho, tall, skinny, dark, and he's a vagina monitor. He is a sex offender, and he shares in that mental illness and that corrupt conduct with the government. But this one in particular he is very much disturbed, and he's engaged in this not only because he hates women because he's a demon, but he's engaged in criminal activity, and whether he hates women or not, a woman is going to prosecute him and put him in prison. In fact, he did it to himself, and a woman's going to oversee that process. That's what's happening, and it's occurring under the company name of Stater Brothers, and these are the employees that were gang stalking, including him at 12 o'clock in the morning. Okay, this is the entity that's doing so right now. What I want to show you is the environment where you're coming out and getting a grocery cart. You're monitoring. I've captured the employees doing this. They're doing so while they're walking to their cars as the store's about to open at 6, and they're pacing around, getting a noisy shopping cart, right? Activity creation. They're monitoring. All right, they're doing so while the entity is stalking by planes, which you saw all of the airport and the police. Everybody going in there is willing to go to prison, and they are, because they're already mentally ill, suicidal, psychopaths, lurking in the parking lot, stalking. There is nothing, especially with that level of evidence. Stater Brothers is engaged in war against American citizens, war which they lost. They lost. His license plate is 6IND858, and he was here at 12 o'clock in the morning, and he's going to prison. He's also going to prison for poisoning me and threatening me and stalking me. And literally, by virtue of seeing him at this venue is a threat, which I'm going to charge and prosecute Stater Brothers for. This is P.O.C. It's exacerbated because a whole population of demons just like him targeting me are engaging in that pattern of conduct. This is P.O.C. It is currently 5:58 a.m., 646 West Hall Boulevard. Stater Brothers is the people of the state. Good morning, Mr. Quinones. That's pacing. And this is the special creature that's stalking in traffic that I documented the other day, and also sounding the alarm as I'm walking into the bathroom. This is all psychologically harmful conduct, and Mr. Quinones again engaging in, yes, he is. He is going to prison. And Stater Brothers is going to be prosecuted as an enemy in the United States, engaging in warfare against American citizens, and doing so cloaking itself as merely a mediocre grocery store. All right, that's P.O.C. And this is indeed the very clear nexus with Southwest Airlines and Stater Brothers as you get to the RICO. And you're talking about the civil and criminal damages. And Mr. Quinones is very much parked in this parking lot. I'm going to include his license plate. This is the demon that's in traffic at the intersection with the fake sun. He's gang stalking 7BWL388. And so is Stater Brothers. 7LCK299. 4KRF259. 8TJE732. And Mr. Quinones was over here stalking the entire time. No vehicles drove over here where he walked out of them while I'm here documenting the pattern of conduct. Okay, so he's monitoring while the African American comes out, a psycho running around in a circle with a shopping cart and running back in. Mr. Quinones is already engaged in surveillance in the parking lot, monitoring.
engaging in what is lying in wait conduct, anticipating my arrival. The entity that is stalking me at the Ontario Town Square is already stalking by maintenance of presence in the path, including ahead of me and behind me. That's also why gang stalking is not a matter of chronology. When you're going into the male restroom in front of me while I'm heading to the restroom, everybody knows that you're a vagina monitor, and you're also going to be prosecuted as a sex offender that is putting up a banner that you're going to engage in vagina monitoring and furtherance of murdering somebody. And that's relevant to also the venue. There are layers to that prosecution, and you are going to answer under the law. 8XQG084, 9XQD846, and pay attention to the plane activity no longer over the walkway. And David Quinones is just as much engaged in targeting. And this is how the companies, this is how the entity, this is how the state has served to remove itself. This is an act of war that the entity has lost. 9GZZ084, and this is warfare. Okay, this is war tactics against American citizens, and you are not going to exist as a company, all right? But you will first be destroyed with regard to damage awards and also literal criminal activity that are occurring under the guise of company names, which is in America how the United States government is engaging in what is waging war as domestic enemies, doing so under cloaking itself as companies like Stater Brothers, like Southwest Airlines. Okay, this is the P.O.C. And as you also know, this is outside. This has nothing to do with what the Ontario International Airport is even publishing on the website. All right, and this is, again, just to be clear, the Ontario police are, quote unquote, engaging in what is security. No, they're not. They're engaging as much security as Securitas is securing the Ontario Town Square. They're there gang stalking. And they're engaging what is surveillance of everybody this is the entity keeping you under surveillance right in front of your face. Monitoring. That's what this is. Okay, this is the P.O.C. It's light activity. That's what it is. That's P.O.C. Alrighty, those are the Stater Brothers employees, including Mr. Quinones. Who knows? He very much knows because he's paying close attention. Okay, the mentally ill that know that they're going to prison, they engaged in psychopathic stalking, which is all over the internet as well. That's exactly why they are going to prison. All right, and he puts on a bold face and he goes right in there and is engaging in what is ongoing criminal activity. P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, while the entity is engaged in vagina monitoring, because that's exactly what's happening inside of Stater Brothers, while the Ontario International Airport's maintaining plane activity and stalking with the people of the state. That's an Asian female, 6U Frank Charlie 173, and she's a serial stalker. All right, she's going to be deported if she's not a natural-born citizen. Her and her children, there is no basis whereby she's remaining in this country. She's engaged in gang stalking me on more than one occasion. And you can see she's particularly enthusiastic about it. She's mentally ill. And that's the basis of the entity that permits immigrants, by the way, to be in this country to keep us under surveillance, and they're going right back to wherever they came from. All right, this is P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaged in that, and they're engaged in what is ambushing my vagina. Okay, ongoing stalking pursuant to my vagina, and this is going to be the humiliating criminal record that terrorists are going to maintain. Like 7 Victor Zebra Thomas 512, 8 EEY 240, 7 Charlie Kelly Sam 778. Pay attention. You see this light activity? That's impossible light activity. All right, this is the entity that's engaging in what is monitoring. They're walking in it, using the shopping carts in it, walking in and out. They're pacing while the entity is maintaining the audible noise of the planes. This is what the entity is doing while they are stalking. Literally, the Ontario Police Department, that is, at any time of the day stalking by helicopter, has already put Mr. Quinones in prison. But he's doing it himself, okay? Cooperating in my prosecutorial efforts regarding putting domestic terrorists where they belong, which is not different from Guantanamo Bay. That's where they belong. P.O.C. All right, the people of the state are stalking in this shopping center, parking over here where Union Pacific is also gang stalking me with this third party that are also inside of the dentist office here, engaging in surveillance with the government, not just engaged in what is dentistry. Okay, they're a bunch of gang stalkers that are engaging in the pattern of conduct and furtherance to murder. All right, so while the fake sun is also moving over me, and this is speaking to every single license plate, and I've documented thousands of them, and there is no statute of limitations. And the federal government knows who you are and where you are, and that's going to be used against you because I'm going to prosecute you. All right, this third party is targeting by coming into this parking lot with the government that's also stalking me via him, which is why they're stalking by commercial plane. License 8JXR930, this is the entity. This is P.O.C. And this fake sun is over me on Holt Boulevard at 7:35 a.m. And it's not in Pomona, California, where I'm capturing video at 7:30 a.m. In other words, while I'm facing east, it is not west of me in Pomona, California. And this is not maintaining this ongoing perpetual presence as you progress in the direction west. It's not omnipresent in Fontana. It's not in LA outside of my living room window. This is where the stalker is engaging in surveillance and furtherance of murdering me, and I'm going to prosecute him and the rest of these demons that are gang stalking. This is psychopathic pacing. It is obviously psychopathic to stalk in commercial airline planes. And this is the domestic terrorism that the United States is engaging in against American citizens. All right? And this is an actual war, a legitimate war, not a guise for the U.S. government that's engaging in corrupt acts of violence against those that are outside and inside of the country. This is an act of war against American citizens that I have proven before justice is going to be executed for the world to witness. This is P.O.C. It's currently 7:36 a.m. It's currently 8:40 p.m. Hello, I have a quick question. What time do you guys close this restroom over here?
We don't lock it up or anything.
You don't? Or I'm sorry?
Do you prefer to use it before closing?
Yeah.
The very latest.
Of course. I mean, it closes at 9.
Yeah.
I was just asking
We don't
because
lock it up or anything.
you don't lock it up. Do you permit usage of it until 9 o'clock?
Not until 9 o'clock. Until about
Yeah.
9:57.
The house. Oh no, not a housekeeper.
We'll
I'm
just
sorry.
ask you to.
The cleaning lady, janitor, or whatever.
She won't board it up or anything.
She has been for the last 2 days. Yeah. Blocking, like putting the whole bucket in front of the door so I can't even open it. But I just wanted to find out, what is your name?
I'm Vicky.
I'm sorry?
Vicky.
Vicky? Okay, Vicky, is there somebody that I can ask about that? Because I don't think I don't mean to make a big deal out of, because it's not a big deal. I know that there's another bathroom, but I find it weird because they clean the bathroom while we're in there all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And also she's going into the women's restroom where she could easily go into the men's restroom, because I doubt she has any guys that are saying, can I use the bathroom? Could I use the bathroom? But I've on more than one occasion been like, can I get to the bathroom, please? And it just seems like out of convenience and consideration for the females in particular, that she would maybe clean the men's room if she insists on doing that before 9 o'clock, even though the restrooms are available to us until 9 o'clock. And like, you just stated that, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe her male partner is the one that cleans.
I'm sorry?
I believe her male partner is the one that cleans the men's restroom.
No, last night there was nobody. A guy went in the restroom. They were permitted to use the bathroom, but I wasn't, upstairs.
Right, but what I'm saying is she probably won't clean the men's restroom because she's waiting for her male partner to go clean that restroom.
Oh, you're saying the females don't clean the male restrooms?
Sometimes they do during the day, but
I was like, I've seen them go on both of them. They block it closed. But okay, I just wanted to bring that up and ask you. You said you're Vicky?
Yeah.
Okay, I was
Their
told.
supervisor isn't in house either. Like, you could talk to one of our managers, but ultimately it's their supervisor that gives them their task list of what they should be doing after shift.
Okay.
This is not scam.
All right. Thank you. Anyway, Vicky.
Which one?
Vicky is using very specific verbiage. She's saying we do not lock the bathroom, which is not to say that you do not block the ability to use the bathroom. And that's what the janitor is doing, and they're doing it pursuant to targeting. Okay, so you have light that's dancing on the walls and all over the desks. You have these psychopaths that are sitting over here sparking with light, becoming increasingly hostile as I've been publishing evidence that all the demons are sitting up watching. Demons that mow over my head with helicopter like Michael Dorsey. And the entity is engaging in that. Vicky's over here monitoring, engaging in what is making a seesaw noise. It's audible activity in the engineer light. And I'm asking her about that, which I'm also addressing, and I'm addressing it while I'm asking her a question, getting information, and I'm also simultaneously documenting her. But she is gang stalking me in furtherance of murder. She's a state actor, and the entity is stalking, targeting me at computer number 1 while I'm on the second floor, where the entity is sounding helicopter activity. Okay, so that's why I wanted to get up and document who is in the venue, because Vicky is over here gang stalking me with Michael Dorsey, who's targeting me just like he did last night, where I'm at the staircase, and that's confirmed because Michael Dorsey confirmed that he's threatening my life and conspiring my murder as I walk out of this library, where Vicky is gang stalking me right now with that same police department in furtherance of murder, which is a basis of prison for Vicky. And the entity is engaging in what is stalking me by helicopter under the fake moon that followed
because that's not the natural environment. It followed to Ontario at the Ontario Town Square at the Stater Brothers parking lot at the Ontario Village Shopping Center, where then the Ontario Police Department engaged in what is hours of stalking by helicopter as well. All of that is documented. All right, this is P.O.C. I want to document that. We can engage in what is targeting via helicopter activity with the demons that are inside of the library for the purpose of terrorism and gang stalking. They're all sitting up looking psychotic. This is documentation that's going to be studied when you're looking at the mentally ill, demon possessed, and the environment that they're all sitting in, and they're engaging in criminal conduct together. And this is a corrupt society, and it's a mentally ill society. The light activity and how they are all outwardly conducting themselves as though nothing has happened, which is how public corruption exists. All right, but the entities engaging in that while they are engaging in the pattern of conduct, it's absurd the environment that they're in while they are stalking. All right, but nonetheless, Vicky is highly malicious and she's gang stalking the entities sounding helicopter activity inside of this library. It's currently 8:45 p.m. The entity's been engaged in ongoing harassment and terrorism all day long. That's the pattern of conduct. But it's relevant to the entity that's hostile as I publish evidence. The entity that's already lost, right? So when you're documenting a police chief that's stalking you, that police chief is already at a disadvantage. And that police chief certainly has no basis to claim that an American citizen has made it up when they have clearly outlined and recognized and proven that that department is engaged in a very specific pattern of conduct. And that pattern of conduct also happens to be sexually violent, mentally ill. It's criminal, and it's speaking to that which is depraved as it's occurring in concert also with the population. That police department's not just targeting and engaging in criminal conduct by itself as the corrupt government, but is doing so and is incentivizing, facilitating, enabling, sharing in that criminal activity and sexual violence and mental illness with the public. Okay, that's what is going on in Fontana. But I wanted to document that. The entities engaging, as I documented last night, targeting in the bathroom. It is a direct correlation with regard to blocking the ability to use the restroom where the entity sounds amplified noise inside of the restroom, like the entity is, where the entity is engaged in what is stalking with impossible light activity, like I've captured on video, by the way, for years before 2026. And it's also relevant to the entity that is targeting me by helicopters in furtherance of murder and psychologically torturing me. And Michael Dorsey's interested in psychologically torturing me because he is indeed engaged in conspiring my murder. Okay, it's not going to happen, and I'm also going to make sure that he is subject to mental examinations and that department is forever marked, if not disbanded, for the level of stalking and terrorism that they are engaging in. Ontario police are not only being disbanded because they committed kidnapping. The level of stalking is that which is something that cannot be redeemed. All right, so you're talking about wiping it out altogether. This is P.O.C. It is currently 8:47 p.m. at the Fontana Lewis Library. Fontana Lewis Library, this is under the corrupt leadership of Lisa Hazen, who was going to be federally prosecuted. So I just want to be clear, she's the branch manager. She's going to be federally prosecuted. That means, in other words, I know a stalker by name. All I have to do is look up the employees here because they're being prosecuted. This is P.O.C. All right, the Vicky is a vagina monitor, and she's a particularly angry one, okay? Again, just using her name with regard, just like all the license plates that you'll see published on X, they're all sharing in what is monitoring vagina right now, and they're all going to be federally prosecuted, and the way in which sexual violence is going to affect their personal lives is relevant to what are the details. For example, engaging in vagina monitoring while you have minor children, that's going to have a significant effect on the rest of your life. The entities engaging in what is sounding ongoing, incessant, audible noise as I stop the recording, just like last night, okay? As I ended the recording at 9:02, immediately the entity stops pacing by helicopter and comes right toward me and mows over the top of my head while I'm at the parking garage. This is exactly what's happening as I stop the recording right now, as I pull my pants down, as my legs are spread apart, as Vicky is paying very close attention to that, and Vicky is stalking inside of the library where she lives, and she is where she works, and she is working in engineer light, she is working under the fake sun, she is working in relevant position with the stalkers
who utilize helicopters to further facilitate her engagement in what is systematic terrorism, while Vicky is monitoring another woman's vagina who is not sexually interested in her and has not consented to it. Vicky is moreover engaging in what is stalking and monitoring me in a bathroom, which is relevant to her mental illness and relevant to the sexual violence that she shares in, while the entity fills the bathroom with what is amplified noise, not just once, but over and over and over again. And the amplified audible activity, the light activity, the stalking with helicopter, etc., all that stuff is relevant to Vicky's mental illness with regard to communicating a threat. So while the mentally ill are like rabid dogs that are foaming at the mouth, they don't use words, they engage in their behavioral pattern monitoring, and they'll do more of it. It would become wackier, it would become more aggressive, louder, that is, more sensational, more disruptive, that is, more disturbing, more disconcerting, more harassing, more terrorizing. Vicky's engaging in that while she is keeping my vagina under surveillance, and I'm going to prosecute Vicky for being not only not for being a homosexual, but for being a predator of a homosexual nature, okay? Not only is she monitoring my vagina, but she's a woman, and I'm not interested in women. I'm not interested in dudes monitoring my vagina either, but she's a woman that's monitoring my vagina, and she's doing it with the public. Okay, Vicky is exceedingly sick. Vicky is a demon, and that's why she's engaging in that depraved criminal activity. And she's doing it under the corrupt leadership of Lisa Hazen, who was essentially a terrorist leader working inside of the Fontana Lewis Library. All right, this is P.O.C. This is the pattern of conduct where the entity is engaged in what is this mentally ill behavior. And this is the entity that's, again, stalking in helicopter, driving around in police vehicles, stalking in fire trucks. It's the same exact mental disorder amongst the population, and you can see in the image, they're all just sitting there. They're all a bunch of psychos sitting in engineer light, just stalking all day long. I am the focal point of what this entity is concerned with, obsessed with, and the entity is also engaged, and I also want to be clear that the entity is engaged in what is tampering with evidence, which I'm observing also on the website. So this is also relevant to why demons may feel particularly emboldened, like in Ontario, to engage in what is stalking about 72 times a day by plane, while they're gang stalking and accessing my device, as I described earlier, while they're monitoring our devices, and going and accessing my social media account and tampering with my videos, tampering with my documentation, which is not going to remove it from the record. You're going to prison if you were not already headed there. And I mean Julia Gu going to prison, Alan D. WAPNER going to prison, Jim Bowman going to prison. This is the entity that's engaged in that. They are mentally ill. These are gargoyles that sling light, and they wait until you spread your vagina, expose it to then engage in what is making loud noises, which in their mind is a spiritually significant ritual that's going to give them power over you. They're mentally ill. So mentally ill people are not thinking reasonably, but everyone else that is witnessing the mentally ill that are being prosecuted, you're going to prison. Southwest Airlines is nonetheless already prosecuted, so removing one video, removing any of my evidence, removing the description because you are very much fearful of what it is that I'm documenting while you're still stalking, by the way, as though you're unaffected, but behind the scenes you're back there scared and trying to access my accounts and delete it at the same time, you're going to prison. It's not a mystery, and you are also very confused because you are tampering. The evidence still exists. They're very, very simple, feeble-minded being, but they're gargoyles. They're demons. They're not intelligent. They're demons. So that's just what I'm dealing with. But this is nonetheless corrupt, and they're going to learn to respect what is very much a federal case in a federal court, regardless of the type of forum. And this is happening on the internet, and necessarily so. It is groundbreaking, and all the ways in which this entity violated a federal court is going toward how long you're going to prison, and the damages awarded, and the future of that company, however it is that you are engaging in terrorism and furtherance of murdering somebody. It will not be treated any less seriously. And the entity did so while keeping me under surveillance the entire time, and that's also proven by deleting my evidence. This is an entity that's knocking on the door when you're monitoring my vagina. That's the evidence for committing them. This is P.O.C. however, and Vicky is representing the entity as I use her as an analysis because they're all being prosecuted as vagina monitors, including Lisa Hazen, P.O.C. This is AGS gang stalking. That's called criminal summoning. My shadows are this is also an employee. They're all over here crossing paths. This is the same light activity on the stairs on the inside of the building. And there's no light activity that would cause that. This is AGS that's being heavily documented. I just want to be clear, these gang stalking security guards, it's a basis of federal prison. License 9 Kelly Frank Nancy 131, and they're monitoring my vagina while I'm describing Vicky. Vicky is the entity, and it includes AGS. It's the same exact analysis, except Vicky is a homosexual predator as opposed to the predators that are of the opposite gender. Nonetheless, they're sharing in what is the public engagement and what is monitoring my genitalia in the bathroom, where the entity is maintaining amplified audible activity and engineer light. License 9 Kelly Frank Nancy 131 is AGS, that's gang stalking, and they're psychopaths keeping their back to me when they're here stalking with the Fontana Police Department and engineer light. Okay, this is the company I'm also going to prosecute civilly and criminally, right? Aiming light, this is the same as sitting in the library in that impossible light activity. They're mentally ill. It's mentally ill, and while the mentally ill are stalking, you're going to prosecute for that. Okay, license 6 Sam Paul Xavier 507. You're so crazy and psychotic, and you're also stalking me, and that's the government's fault. This is why people like Mike Lorenz and also Michael Dorsey are going to prison. Okay, you see there. Okay, Vicky's monitoring my vagina with Michael Dorsey, and neither one have been invited. And just like I stated, AGS is stalking, and they're working every day. That's federal prison. Okay, your work schedule will get you locked up. All right, and the entity, Vicky, is monitoring my vagina while she's engaged in what is sexually violent conduct that is sanctioned by Michael Dorsey, who is a threat to the public. And Michael Dorsey is a sex offender, and everybody working for the Fontana Police Department and the people of the state of Fontana, California, and the demon calling herself a mayor are sex offenders, and they don't like that fact based on them being analyzed and called based on what they are doing, and that's because they're mentally ill, in fact. But that's exactly what they are, and sex offenders are going to prison. And there will be sex offenders from Fontana going to prison. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaged in psychopathic pacing, much like you see Mike Lorenz doing in Ontario every single day, every single night. Under the fake moon. This is a ritual. Michael Dorsey's, they consider themselves engaging in what is a ritual. It's mentally ill behavior. It's identified as a pattern of conduct, and it's clearly not working because he's being federally prosecuted. JNYXMSE, and he is so mentally ill that they continue in the same. It's the same, which is criminal conduct, engaging in surveillance in the vehicle, monitoring my vagina. License 9PNF595. Crossing path monitoring with Michael Dorsey. They're in the parking garage engaged in surveillance. Under the fake moon. P.O.C. License plate. This is a sex offender. License 9 Larry Bob Robert 160. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, the ongoing course of conduct regarding criminal activity, regarding a Chamber of Commerce being a terrorist, regarding a Fontana City Council being a terrorist, regarding a police department being a terrorist. This is the entity that is sharing a pattern of conduct, and the federal consequences are very severe. Okay, the entity is engaging what a pattern right here. As I exit the library, here you are greeting me with psychopathic pacing. Michael Dorsey is headed to federal prison. That's what you're witnessing. Michael Dorsey's headed straight to federal prison. Just like McMillan's going to prison. I documented him. And the demons that are gang stalking it with Stephanie Ortiz criminal summoning, they're going to federal prison. The demons that I documented stalked me at the 7-Eleven on the day that they engaged in criminal summoning, they're going to federal prison. And the entity that's engaging what is stalking by helicopter is doing so pursuant to what is, you're going to report it to me. You're going to literally identify, you're going to produce it is what it's called, and you're going to prison. And so will the terrorist leader, Michael Dorsey. And it does not change because you do not like that I'm telling you exactly what's going to happen. This is impossible light activity while my shadow appears over here. And it's appearing down here in front of me. That's a demon that's stalking in a helicopter. Stalking is shown through what is surveillance underway with this inexplicable, irreconcilable light activity, as irreconcilable as the sun being over me at the Fontana Chamber of Commerce at 8 o'clock in the morning and at the Fontana Chamber of Commerce at 5:30 in the evening, which is also that which is on the record. And you are stalking. Science is on my side. You are stalking. This is P.O.C. Vicky is going to be prosecuted for harassing me while she's keeping my vagina under surveillance. She is an unprecedented sex offender. This is P.O.C. And the city of Fontana is helping to get her federally prosecuted. That's how genius they are, while they are now engaged in criminal activity that's pointing the finger at each other.
And nobody is smart enough to figure out maybe we should stop because the evidence is serving to their own detriment. Nobody gathers that. They want a lot of people that are going to prison, and that's exactly what you're going to get. There's no like limit to how many are going to prison. There's no limit to the amount of gang stalkers. All right, this is P.O.C. This is upon my exit of the Fontana Lewis Library, where the demons are engaging what is communicated as an entity. That's a demon in the back alley, and I documented license plates back there when the Fontana police were stalked by helicopter, and they deserve all of that which they're getting under federal law because this is the pattern of conduct that they share in. P.O.C. It is currently upon exit of the library, 9:02 p.m. Stalking with Fontana Police at Valencia and Sierra 7 Sam David Zebra 675, and doing so with impunity. All right, very much, in other words, a prime candidate for federal prison. The entity that's engaging in terrorism is doing so with a complete disregard, and then upon being shown and proven to be accountable and exposed, meaning the whole world can just get on the internet and see them engaging in what is despicable, disgusting, perverted, psychopathic, and highly satanic behaviors, which are criminal. They are engaging in that in the face of it with regard to what is just a blind denial. And that's under the law. You're getting to what is a refusal. You're getting to what is impunity, as though the federal government is going to just entertain that. These are terrorists. These are enemies that are engaging in that ongoing refusal regarding American citizens and their lives. Okay, so you are talking about prison. So this is the entity that's engaged. And remember, this isn't traffic. Because if it's serious enough, meaning the federal government coming to raid, do you know how empty this and silent the street will be? The entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct, and they're doing so pursuant to what is surveillance. Surveillance that's occurring in every single facet of existence. Fontana police stalking and doing so at what is 9:09 p.m. and they've clearly communicated already, even before when they were stalking me in a large tank with their SWAT vehicle. They clearly do not know what those are used for, and so they're not going to have access to them anymore. So that's the type of cowardice that you're engaging in. A 5'5", 125 pound woman, and that's who you want to use a SWAT vehicle on just to be seen. Like I'm going to take like I care. Number one, but that makes you feel like that's speaking to their mental illness. And the Fontana police have already shown that they are entirely incompetent and unfit, dangerous to the public. Okay, enslaving the people of the state that are gang stalking with them. And that is not a defense to the people of the state. It's relevant to them being subject to the same mental illness, sharing in the same criminal pattern of conduct, and they are subject to the same criminal repercussions because they are, meaning when they're stalking with the police. Because the police, I document you stalking, I get your license. You're talking about the department. I can literally go to the police department and get your license plate. You're going to prison. But the entities that's engaging in this, they're sharing in the pattern of conduct when they're engaging in the elements of monitoring in the face of an American citizen that is not going to be left unprotected with regard to the government that is stalking together. So these demon-possessed gargoyles pacing all around you with the police together. They're doing so together. They're both going to prison. All of them, however many, they're going to prison. All right, and this is relevant to what is an entity that seeks to torture you, threaten you, harass you, terrorize you. They want to sexually violate you, and then they also want to intimidate you and seek and try to force you to be like they're psychotic. You're going to prison and you're going to be subject to what are regular, routine mental examinations. You need a battery of tests, and I am not exaggerating. The difference between the people of the state is that the gang stalkers, by virtue of your position, you're going to prison. You are a stalker, and that is diametrically opposed to being in law enforcement. And you're not even engaged in law enforcement. You're acting like you are so you can get away with stalking somebody. You're going to prison because they're engaged in that to commit murder and kidnapping. And Michael Dorsey's not even acting. He's overtly stalking. You're going to prison. Since you have such a level of impunity and disdain, since you're openly engaging in stalking somebody I am the federal government as far as Dorsey is concerned. And the fact that you don't like that, you know what it does not change? What I already told everyone that's witnessing it, what's going to happen. And he's going to be sitting in a cell thinking about it. Okay? This is an entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct, and your impunity is what's going to determine how many decades you get in prison. This is the entity that's engaging. That level of impunity is a blatant message regarding terrorists that need to be locked away.
And that's what's going to happen. This is not traffic, it's surveillance. This is P.O.C. And this is the walk to the Fontana Metrolink train station where the entity is maintaining surveillance. On the roads and the highways. On the train system, just like you hear Metrolink. In the sky space, just like I'm documenting. Where the people of the state reside, like I've already shown. In my home, where the people of the state reside, where I'm traveling, and you're seeing the fake sun remaining over 9720 Juniper Avenue in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, when I'm getting on the bus route going either east or west, it's the same conduct. They're engaged in gang stalking. That's P.O.C. And that's amplified audible activity with Fontana Police. That's Metrolink that I'm going to prosecute as well. All right, Metrolink's engaged in surveillance, and so they are also a threat to the public while they are engaged in the conspiracy to murder American citizens that they are keeping under surveillance, and they're interested in your genitalia. That's how much of a threat Metrolink is to the public. All right, they are a sex offender hiding itself, cloaking itself behind a company name. All right, and there are various entities that are associated with the terrorist Metrolink. You will find the sex offenders' names, these government officials that are gang stalking, engaging in surveillance, and also profiting from it under the guise of the formation of a terrorist organization called Metrolink. Okay, it's a state entity. It's not a third party. All right, this is P.O.C. The entity is also engaged in what is stalking by helicopter, while Metrolink is the form of audible activity. This is the entity that is, again, they're very much hostile, very much triggered. They're in there sparking like they're about to catch fire, right? That's the light activity. But at the same time, you're still stalking me. You don't want to leave. You don't want to leave me alone. You want to sit there and slobber while you're staring at my social media and monitoring me. But you're very triggered at the same time. That's the mental illness right there. That's the mental illness that is so angry, it'll pull out a helicopter. And if it could get away with it, it will pull out a weapon and take an American citizen's life. That's exactly why the Fontana Police Department are going to be federally prosecuted. And the totality of circumstances is speaking to what is disbanding. Okay, and with regard to what is their position under federal law and under state law, their position, they find the evidence shows that they are repugnant, all right, that they are hostile to, that they have a disdain for law and order, okay, and even being corrected when you are dead wrong. Okay, that's an enemy. You're already an enemy, but you're an enemy that cannot be redeemed. You don't have to exist. You are not indispensable whatsoever. You are clearly the opposite. You're a terrorist. You're an enemy. All right, this is P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, the entities engaged in psychopathic pacing over the village at Sierra, okay? More old people that are stalking with the police who are not, again, complaining that helicopter activity is occurring over their apartments. All right, I'm just assuming because nobody at Woodside Senior Apartments did, nobody at Alvarado Gardens did, nobody at the 280 North Lemon Apartments does. All right, but when I'm speaking, much like at this volume, outside of the building, not on top, not inside of the building, the entity is very much disturbed by me. I think it's the content of my speech as I'm convicting a bunch of demons. This is Satan. All right, this is the entity that's engaged in that, and that's what Satan is. Satan's going by the name of Michael Dorsey. Satan's going by the name of the Fontana Police Department, and Satan is going to be removed because Satan is unfit to be in that position. He's not remaining, and Satan is merely mad about it. And I don't care about Satan's feelings because they're not even based on reality. This is P.O.C. Satan's keeping my vagina under surveillance, and you're just not going to be in law enforcement. Period. Nobody cares how you feel. We know what you feel and what you like. You like monitoring and stalking vagina. You like tormenting people until you feel like you're in control of something. Okay, this is an entity that's engaging that with a population that is enslaved by these demons. They're all subservient to this. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:15 p.m. Alrighty, so this is, first of all, a picture of mental illness. This is a picture of mental illness. They're all here gang stalking one person, conspiring the murder of one person that they're also not addressing, and they're all stalking together. Under the law, this is stalking, and this is how a population is stalking. And you have an agency that's supposed to be law enforcement, and they're actually using the resources of the department to engage in criminal activity, including with the mentally ill that are stalking altogether. This is a picture of mental illness. This is, again, the federal imprisonment of Michael Dorsey. And more importantly right here, because this is the immediate circumstance, this African-American male right here, that's federal prison. He's operating this vehicle right here. He's going to drive the bus. He's gang stalking me here. It's a threat to my life. You can analyze the facts. He's engaged in gang stalking. He's exhibiting severe mental instability and do so, high level of malice. And then he's operating a vehicle, which is already a threat to my life. It's already a gamble. And he's gang stalking me with Michael Dorsey. He's operating bus 2350. He's doing the fake moon, which follows me to Ontario, in concert with a bunch of demons that are also stalking, studying their devices, mentally ill, in the engineered environment. Omnitrans is surrounding. That's not waiting. As I'm walking, these demons are making sure that I'm surrounded. License 1545684. And I'm going to surround them with a federal case. License plate 1590904. That's Omnitrans using the vehicles. That's the RICO case. They're using the vehicles to engage in criminal activity monitoring with Michael Dorsey, who is literally the evidence to put them away. That's how that works. And this is literally evidence of following from place to place. But they're not just following as in stalking in the most spectacular way, such as with a helicopter, speaking to the direct opposite purposes of a police department. Michael Dorsey is engaged in terrorism. And Michael Dorsey is keeping me under surveillance, meaning he knows that I'm documenting him terrorizing me, and he keeps doing it. That's the basis of prison. And then all the murderers and kidnappers of that agency are also subject to prison. I document their license plates. They encountered you're stalking conspicuously while they're engaged in that, you're going to prison. This is the entity that's like Jay Escarpi, the Asian male, very violent, very aggressive. He's going to prison. And what Michael Dorsey is doing is not helping him. Not that there is any help, but I'm just showing you how these facts work. This is the African-American male who was operating, and also Route 66, the shorty doo-wop over here with the hair that's taller than him. License 1656564, and that's Route 66 bus 1364. They're systematically engaged in monitoring with the Fontana police. This is P.O.C. This is the Fontana Transit Center, and the government shall be the means whereby the people of the state are being put in the facilities where they belong, which is in prison and in mental wards. All right? This is stalking with light, very mentally ill conduct, very mentally sick conduct. Their purpose is to surround, and so is this. Their purpose is to surround. And they're actually acting together. They're not separate. They're acting together. And this is psychopathic pacing. And this is the transit center where Allied Unit is standing here referring to these gang members as though she's going to call them while I'm engaged in very much this right here, documenting her threatening my life in furtherance of murder, exhibiting mental illness under a fake sun, stalking me, doing so while misrepresenting herself as being a security guard. All right, and she said, and I quote, "I'm going to press charges." Remember that? She is going to prison. 9 p.m. 406. It's engaging in sexual assault and battery, and she's acting in concert with the Fontana police who fly back over. And that's, again, the Fontana police that likes flying over the top of my head. This is the Fontana Police Department that's going to be federally prosecuted, and this is the level of war that an entity that's engaged in domestic terrorism is waging against American citizens. Michael Dorsey is a domestic enemy. He's not a police chief. And those that are engaged in acts of war, it's going to be responded to. And it's also going to be responded to what are going to be actual restraints. You're going to prison, and they're going to be subject to what are necessary, as the evidence shows, mental examinations. Okay? That's the P.O.C. and the entities engaged in this, where the Fontana Police Department is not going to survive a federal prosecution. American society is better off without the Fontana Police Department, who use SWAT vehicles to engage in, just like they use helicopters to engage in threatening and stalking, because they are also intimidated by me. And because of the fact you're stalking, you're intimidated because you're stalking. You wouldn't be intimidated if you were minding your business and not my vagina. All right? Michael Dorsey is severely mentally ill, and that's also an independent basis to make sure he's permanently done with law enforcement, which he is. He's done. All right? This is the fake moon over the bus, and this remains over me. This is speaking to the picture of mental illness, which is what you're witnessing. All right? These are not men. Like I said, these are not men. And this is also the picture of what is public corruption upon what is a depraved population. They are all enslaved. This is a 2026 form of slavery. Okay? They're all engaging in the pattern of conduct together. And it's a part of their role to just act like nothing is happening, and they dare not speak against the demons that are stalking by helicopter. And what I'm documenting is that they, just like the demons in the helicopter, are subject to prison. And there's no mystery. Who you are, where you live, where you go, that's neither here nor there. You're subject to federal prison. But I just want to be clear on that. There is no defense with regard to the people of the state. So just like there's no defense stating that someone forced me to murder someone, that's not a defense. You're going to prison. And there is no such thing under federal law where it's going to provide a defense for the people where they are gang stalking with the police. And moreover, they enjoy engaging in it. Okay? But aside from that, there's no defense. You're going to prison. Criminal summoning, you're going to prison.
stalking with the entity using helicopters just like you are. You're seeing the necessity of the people of the state while they're engaging in surveillance and the terrorizing means such as by helicopter. You're seeing the member openly engaging in surveillance, and that this is you're going to prison. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, I just want to document this is the employee. I will get his number, but he's engaged in operating the coach, and he's gang stalking me in furtherance of murder, which is a threat conspicuously posed also by Omnitrends. That's demonstrating an ongoing purpose to engage in what is targeting me. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:31 p.m. All right, the African American male threatening my life by gang stalking me with the city police and then operating the coach that is being compensated for gang stalking me. That is a malicious guise of conspiring my murder, as Omnitrans and this employee number 4267 is engaged in the criminal pattern of conduct, which is proven by the gang members of the Fontana Police Department, who are effectively providing evidence against employee 4267, who is on the job and is engaging in criminal surveillance in violation of Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2, is engaged in a criminal conspiracy to commit murder, is acting in furtherance of murder and psychological torture, and is a violent sex offender. I want to be clear, employee number 4267 is fully engaged in the vagina monitoring that Vicky inside of the Fontana Lewis Library and everybody else as an entity shares in. I merely document from place to place, moment to moment. The entity is surrounding at all times, stalking ceaselessly. It is indistinguishable between the homosexual predator Vicky, Lisa Hazen, the gang stalking manager of the library, Michael Dorsey, a demon, a chief of vagina monitors, stalking me in helicopters, and this employee number 4267 operating the vehicle. They are sharing in the criminal system, ceaselessly acting together in concert on an ongoing basis with impunity. All right, I want to make sure that I document that employee number 4267 is P.O.C. And this is Omnitrends. Omnitrends is going to be criminally prosecuted, distinct from the coach operators. I'm going to prosecute the business for criminal activity and also civilly prosecuting Omnitrends. P.O.C. Alrighty, this is audible activity. It's not relevant for any sort of content. It's audible activity to the demons inside of El Bacon as well. They're monitoring with the Ontario police, who are stalking as I get off of the bus with the African American male who is gang stalking me with the city of Fontana and gang stalking with the city of Ontario as well. And so is El Bacon, and I've already fully documented this venue, the entity altogether, stalking this morning in the dark, flying over El Bacon, and everybody inside of El Bacon is gang stalking with the police, which is the basis of federal prison. All right. The Ontario police stalking me by helicopter. The entity is doing so with those that are walking in and out of. This is a venue that's associated with the so-called security. They're not security, and that was pacing. He didn't forget something. That's a demon, and that's the demons that are also stalking by helicopter, and they're doing so while, I just want to be clear. Let's just give an example regarding what Tracy Banks is discussing on video, because I documented her kidnapping with the Ontario Police Department, which includes the demon that is like C. Taurus. This demon that's engaging in what is lying about me attacking her, lying about having mental illness. When you're looking at the Fontana Police and the Ontario Police Department that are stalking me so heavily by helicopter, and I already clearly stated what happened, it's very clear who is the stalker and who is the liar under these circumstances. And the entity is doing so with the people of the state. The stalker includes what is Mobility Solutions, parking enforcement, under contract with the demons of Ontario, and I will prosecute that company in Ontario. Ontario is literally causing to be federally prosecuted. It's not an umbrella of protection. It's incriminating. And this is a demon that's stalking with light, very mentally ill, just like he was with the doorway right now, walking in and out. He's engaged in psychopathic pacing, and he's literally stalking right now with the Ontario police, who are stalking by helicopter right now. Okay, this is the business, ACE, and the third party operating the vehicle, and doing so at Ontario Town Square, which is a venue associated with the a venue associated with the third party. This is a demon. I believe he is operating this vehicle and associated with El Bacon 9 VAB 199. They're all stalking with the Ontario Police Department right now. License 9NLS 219. This is a mentally ill population that has repeatedly kidnapped me and the city of Ontario is being federally prosecuted. They're sitting around stalking while they've engaged in trying to sacrifice me, and it didn't work. So now you're looking at the fake moon following me to another city, and this is also a stalker, 7BYA321. The moon that's over the Fontana Metrolink train station and the moon that's over the Fontana Lewis Library, while the entity has a pattern of stalking by helicopter, that's the entity that lied and committed kidnapping with terrorist agencies, that the Ontario Police are not a police department. And this is the entity that's also given context while Fontana Police and Ontario Police are sharing in that pattern of conduct. Now, this is the evidence that you have when you're going to review the evidence, when you're going to review, yeah, that's a loudmouth demon that doesn't really want to be on video. But I already have his license plate. This is a mentally ill that is stalking with light. Okay, and opening, closing door, very mentally ill. This is the demon that's under the fake moon. But I want to be clear, you're going to get that license. This is impunity. This is this is what's monitoring vagina. This is a sex offender. And this is the entity that's engaging in that. And this is the entity that's doing so with the Ontario Police. They share the same mental illness and the same instability. Now, what I want to bring to your attention, the significance of the lights. All right, while they are engaging what is messing with their lights, the reason why they're doing that is because they are minions that are monitoring. And this is El Bacone. The demons are monitoring with El Bacone. They're monitoring with the Ontario Police. And this is going back to the kidnapping that the Ontario Police Department committed with Craig Hazelwood. And doing so also with Owens, and doing so also with Tracy Banks on May 29, 2025. And what I want to bring to your attention are all of the lies and the criminal defamation. While that department is stalking, and not just with the people of the state of Ontario, why is the entity stalking so heavily? Because we're beyond questioning. This is already proven, and it's given further context regarding the lies that Tracy Banks, the people of the state, uttered while they committed kidnapping. With regard to what is trying to defame my character, because that makes kidnapping me more realistic, while you are stalking, just like the Ontario Police Department are doing. So while I'm at this intersection, the entity is stalking by helicopter. They're stalking on the roads and the highways as well. They're already in relevant positions stalking, creating light activity, and the federal court is going to recall this mental illness that's exhibited. Stalking with light will have you committed, and the entity is engaging in that while the entity is stalking by airport. And this is where the entity is engaging in that pattern of conduct with the entity that committed kidnapping on May 29th, while Michael Dorsey is targeting me, and while Mike Lorenz is targeting me. And then all those gang members, Nathan Morgan, you remember C. Torres, you remember Martinez, all those gang members that look so serious, and they look like they're so trustworthy because they're wearing those police uniforms, right? And they're sitting there verifying what they're witnessing and what Tracy Banks stated, and how under the authority they're engaging in what is an arrest under the Welfare and Institutions Code is what's implicated when you're trying to defame someone. This is what the entity's doing while the city of Ontario is stalking. And pay attention, very detailed, because they're not flying over the El Bacone like they are when I'm at the bench on the opposite side of El Bacone, because El Bacone is stalking. And they're stalking as clone through the environment where the fake moon is remaining over me, in the same way that it's no longer in Fontana. The whole environment remains over me. That's the entity that's speaking to what are the demon-possessed that call themselves Fontana Police Department, the demon-possessed that call themselves Ontario Police Department, the demon-possessed that refer to themselves, because I educated them on that. They're vagina monitors who are psychopathic, and they don't even know what the people of the state means. But this is the entity that's engaging in what is the pattern of conduct, and they're engaging in the criminal pattern of conduct with regard to exposing all the kidnappings that they also committed together. This population is being federally prosecuted and thoroughly prosecuted under all areas of federal law with regard to dealing with a population that is bankrupt, that is a threat to society, that is mentally ill, the entire population sharing in criminal activity. This is the same vagina monitor. Oh no, he's parked over there. This is the entity. He has the same hideous vehicle that lives at Metro 102. Him and his girlfriend that are both obsessed with my vagina, stalking in the morning with the Ontario International Airport. But this is same vehicle, different person, same entity, however. But I just want to document that this is relevant because Mike Lorenz, this is a suicidal demon. He's going to prison. He is much aware of all the kidnappings that I've documented, how thoroughly I've spoken to it, all the lies that this entity depended on their identity in order to get away with it, and I'm using their identity to expose them, meaning it's even worse because of your identity. You're not getting away with anything because of your identity. It's the exact different. It's the exact opposite. Here's my shadow over here, and this is my shadow right here. He's stalking with Metro 102, and he's stalking with Ontario Police, and this is federal prison. License plate, helicopter activity, 27139 Larry 4. And this is the entity that thought that lying about me being mentally ill with Tracy Banks was going to be a successful kidnapping and that nobody would know and that he's not going to prison. Mike LORENZ is going to prison, and all the gang members on May 29th are going to prison. They are, in fact, severely mentally ill, and they're also going to be subject to mandatory treatments, okay, involuntarily. And this level of stalking that they're doing every single day, every single night, and the ways in which they're doing so, you're going to recall the details of every kidnapping that they conducted, because this agency is no longer going to exist, and it's the same grounds of kidnapping by Fontana police, okay? Excuse me, same grounds of disbanding, same grounds of federal prison. All right, this is the entity that's going to be treated uniformly under federal law. And this is an entity that's engaged in what is militarizing what are stalkers, not police, and doing so with blatant disregard for their future, their lives, what's going to happen to the people that are connected to them. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen to them. They're all going to be impoverished, because not only is Mike LORENZ going to prison, he's going to prison without a dollar. He's not getting a last paycheck. And I've stated that before. And he's also aware of it. This is why you would engage in providing this level of evidence. This isn't distracting from the evidence. You listen to all of the evidence I captured when they did the exact same thing at the Ontario Village Shopping Center, where the Ontario police went out of their way to fly in circles over me for a prolonged period, for hours, to fly over the top of my head outside of the Ontario Village Shopping Center while I'm standing at Emile Gabriel DDS and the King's Inc. inside of that shopping center. They're remaining flying in circles while I'm outside of the Stater Brothers, and they're doing so while I'm at the Ontario Town Square. And it's very clear. The fake sun is remaining over me from city to city. And that's relevant to the entity that went out of its way. What the question is, why is the Ontario police lying on my character when they're stalking so heavily? And that's exactly what's going to be addressed. And it's going to be addressed with regard to decades in prison. That's how it's going to be addressed. Decades. Okay, the entity that's engaging in that, and the kidnapping that occurred on May 29th, the kidnapping that occurred, January 2020, the kidnapping that occurred in May of 2018, Jonathan Burnett, from the first to the last, they are all going to federal prison. All of them. And they're engaged in conduct that Michael Dorsey is showing you exists throughout the state as I go from city to city, and I am the focal point, proven through an impossible environment and proven through what is psychotic level of stalking by the population and by the entity that is engaged enslaving a population of demons who are subservient to what is the beast system. And this is the end, the conclusive end of that beast system. And these are the fools that have been engaged in barbarism. They're engaged in murdering people. They're engaged in maintaining a bully system. That's why you have this idiocy that I am using, weaponizing it to prosecute terrorists and sex offenders that have never been police officers. They've never been police departments. And I'm also using what is everything that they have said and done, which clearly points to that. All right, so these are the geniuses that are stalking at this level, and then they're going to be confronted with the things that they've already said and done, and versus what they continue to do in light of the fact that they are keeping the evidence even under surveillance. You're going to prison and you're not getting out. That's the bottom line. And just like I stated, while I was at this intersection, that's exactly what the demons are doing, stalking. While the demons are engaged in what is harassing, that flickering of the light, that's a threat because it's relevant to monitoring and furtherance of murder, while you're doing it in the target individual's face. And he was doing it with the police that is federal prison. That's an entity that's doing so. And they're all, including El Bacone, while the entity is engaged in what is stalking me with the Ontario Police Department, waiting for me to get off the bus, where the employee, the tall African-American male, is indeed engaged in terrorism, just like the video is capturing while he's doing so with the Fontana Police Department, sharing a very clear pattern of conduct. The pattern of conduct is serving a dual purpose: to expose and diagnose mental illness that is no longer closeted. All right, this is a lawless people, and it's a mentally sick people, and they engage in murders together. They commit murders together, and if they don't engage in that, if they do not abide, if they are not subservient to it, they are the ones that are victims of murder. And that is not going to be a defense for any gang stalker. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:54 p.m. This is what the entity is engaged in while they're engaged in stalking me, and El Bacone is fully engaged in that. El Bacone is engaged in targeting on an ongoing basis, and this little nothing of a patio with disco lights that they get from Toys R Us, I'm going to prosecute them, and they can't even afford to pay for the damages, nor what is time in prison. Okay, they're gang stalking and they're doing so while they're making money. These demons are pacing outside while they're listening to me sentence them in this prosecution that they don't understand is already happening on the internet. This is P.O.C. and the Ontario Police Department are serving for that. This is the ironic aspect regarding the criminal system. The very system that they targeted me with is the very conduct that's used to prosecute every single facet of the defendant, the entity, the state of California, the U.S. government. Because while these geniuses are stalking, so are the people of the state. And they're going to prison. Literally. License 9KPY111. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaged in the pattern of conduct, and I want you to hone in on May 29, 2025. And listen to everything that was stated. And listen to my staunch position regarding what I told them is going to happen. And that is under no circumstances any sort of mental illness. And I remain in that same exact position. Mike LORENZ is going to prison. All those gang members are going to prison. Tracy Banks is going to prison. Woodside Senior Apartments, those demons in those apartments are going to prison. This is P.O.C. Those are cowards that are sitting around hiding in the dark, sounding sirens, and that's what they do concerning my vagina, masturbating in the dark, in police vehicles, in fire trucks, and in ambulances, while they are sex offenders that are cloaking themselves as medical professionals, as law enforcement officers, and they are sex offenders who are professional stalkers. Stalking in helicopter and stalking in an ambulance, it does not get any more absurdly psychotic. That's specifically American Medical Response, who's going to be prosecuted just like that. They're going to be prosecuted as sex offenders. They're going to be prosecuted as stalkers. They're going to be prosecuted as kidnappers, because that's exactly what American Medical Response already committed. There is no statute of limitations. The federal law is going to snatch up those demons because they're going to prison. License 8XKT349. This is Crossing Path by a demon coming out of El Bacone, monitoring with the whole entity. Cowards looking down. The entity is stalking by helicopter, stalking with sirens. That's a stalker that's coming out to share in the pattern of conduct. This is a stalker engaging in surveillance around the perimeter, and that is mental illness. They're going to be committed with this conduct of stalking with light. P.O.C. license F695J0 is gang stalking with this demon, and this is relevant for damages, and it's also relevant for the ongoing harms incalculable while a population is stalking you in these absurdly psychotic ways. And they're doing so with the police. I want to be clear, that's federal prison. Everybody over here, I'm going to document them. Everyone over here, this is federal prison, immediate federal prison grounds. P.O.C. it's currently 10:57 p.m. This is a demon that's gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department as well. Just monitoring another woman, monitoring another person, and doing so in furtherance of murdering that person. Doing so while the police are engaged in psychopathic pacing, and they're engaged in what is monitoring on communication devices. This is federal stalking that you're looking at. And it's also demon possession, and it's also the act of criminal monitoring. And it's committed in furtherance of murder. It's 10:59 p.m. All right, no license plate on the front, and while you're touching, that's sexual assault and battery. And this is the city of Ontario that is engaged in criminal monitoring in cons with the people of the state. And this is a process. You're already removing the mayor. Paul Leon's not staying in office. Okay? This is P.O.C. He's not just merely being removed from office. He's being federally prosecuted. Alrighty, this is the conduct that the entity is relying on. The stalkers in the helicopter are relying on. Light activity. Remember, this is where my on the floor in a line, and this is a mentally ill person. Okay, and this is a stalker, a demon possessed one that doesn't have to look at you, and they are very much focused, listening to you, aware of what's going on between your legs, and they are obsessively stalking you in furtherance of murdering you. It's very psychopathic, and it's mentally ill, and it represents a whole population, including the one that's in a helicopter. P.O.C. Alrighty, this immediate environment that I'm documenting, and the immediate environment, every single last one of them, and more. I'm just getting the immediate environment, the immediate zone of relevant positioning with regard to my documentation. They're all monitoring. That's how you have the. That's why you have the demons that are, first of all, the state's conduct, but also the people of the state that are engaging in this psychopathic pattern, not only in use, in custody, studying their device, doing so while the entity is under keeping a fake moon, the environment is following me while they're stalking with light. Psychopaths that are aiming light onto surfaces, and they're engaging in this maniacal, deranged behavior, which is literally the substance of what is diagnosing the mental illness that is a threat to American citizens, while a population suffers the same condition. The condition that inspires them to inflict harm to other innocent, unsuspecting people who have a right to not be subject to it. And regardless of what you think about them, regardless of however they're living their life, the government doesn't have a right to engage in this, and no demon has any right to do so. So while you're praying to Satan, that's one thing. But when you want to start trying to sacrifice people and you think you're going to stalk someone conspicuously and psychologically torture them, now you're engaged in what is terrorism as an entity, because that demon-possessed person isn't doing it by themselves. Those are demons. Demons act in packs, and I've also proven that through the pattern of conduct. They're doing it in an environment that is supernatural. Satan is being prosecuted. This is the criminalization of what is demonic activity, and it is indeed criminal surveillance. P.O.C. This is the entity that's maintaining it. And this is upon my arrival to the Ontario Town Square. This video is going to go online, but it's immediately preceded by what is the extensive video of the entity stalking, flying over my head by a helicopter, okay? These are all stalkers. Psychopathic pacing, stalking with light. They're mentally ill, and this is surrounding. This is a threat. They're being prosecuted. License plate. This is pacing. All of this has a purpose. It's not random. It's in sync, and it's based on me, and the fake moon is over me. Remember that. Following from Fontana, and they are following as well. License plate. Psychopath. EG41J4. Very mentally ill. Very mentally ill. And it's going to be a matter of public information and a matter of a federal prosecution. License plate EP1A, and this is exactly why Mike LORENZ is under no circumstances staying in position. He is going to prison. So are the people of the state. This is P.O.C. Excuse me?
What happened?
I'm documenting on my phone.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought you were recording.
I thought that you were yelling. I thought you had something else to say. This is the demon that's monitoring. Everything that they're saying is monitoring you. And that's the entity that's threatening you with the police that are stalking by helicopter. They know exactly what's being documented right now. And everything that you say, I'm going to use against you. You're going to prison. That's P.O.C. It is currently 11:04 p.m. This is criminal activity that the gang stalkers that are engaged in surveillance in California are responsible for. And then they also engage in what is committing murders and kidnappings, and then claim that they're investigating it. The people of the state that are gang stalking are responsible for the criminal statistics that they're supposedly studying and producing. This is a whole fake show, a fake reality. Okay, the entities engaging what is maintaining control and surveillance over everyone and everything. And now that's being exposed and it's being prosecuted. And the Ontario Police Department have literally lost control. They've lost any sense of having any sense of an actual objective other than to just be as openly flagrant and as annoying as possible, because it's not slowing down anything, and it is proving what I said from the beginning, from day one. First of all, what's going to happen, but number two, what they are and what they're doing. That's P.O.C. It is currently 11:05 p.m. at the Ontario Town Square. Remember, this is where the Ontario International Airport is stalking. The Ontario International Airport is going to be federally prosecuted and shut down and civilly sued for every kidnapping that they are a part of. P.O.C.